I remember your name. I know the street your house is on, and I can still feel the tones going off. Your living room was cluttered, but there was enough space for 5 firefighters, 1 police officer, and 2 EMS providers. The officer started CPR first, and you would never have known it was his first time. Supplies kept landing in my hands without a single word being said. 8 minutes, your heart struggled until the loudest silence was broken by the phrase, "I feel a pulse." I remember your wife when I grabbed her hand saying his heart is beating. I didn't realize who you were until the second, and then the third ambulance arrived on scene, wearing the same uniform that was laid out on your couch. In 30 minutes, your alarm would go off for your shift. I walked into the ICU and I remember seeing the drips, hearing the vent hiss, and then the blood pressure cycle. You moved your toes when my partner said hi. Every day we waited for the call that was never made, but instead we got a Facebook invite for your celebration of life. I remember it was Tuesday. My radio was on the bathroom counter, and the Velcro ripped from my belt. I recognized the address. I got in the truck with my partner, and I felt the breakfast I didn't get to eat come up in my throat. 0.9 miles felt like 90 as we heard the captain's voice tremble over the radio giving us updates. You were surrounded by the men you trained. I looked at the Purby who found you and I saw the fear in his eyes. Everyone's faces were wet, whether it was from tears or sweat from the training they were doing before you collapsed. You pointed to your chest saying, "It hurts." I looked at your brother and he said, "You taught me CPR too well." Smoke over fire, cloud over grass. I looked at the leads with my blurry eyes and noticed that grass was over clouds. And I looked at my partner, fumbling with the 12-lead cables. "Look at me. Everything's okay." I kept giving your men tasks to do to distract them from seeing you on the cot. I didn't need a 4x4. I needed him to have a moment to turn away and cry. 1, 2, 3, 4 cop cars, 2 engines, 2 sprint cars, and 1 ambulance howled across town. Everyone knew that someone special was in that truck. I threw away your socks, but the hospital gave you good ones anyway. They also gave you a nice discharge packet with care instructions for an internal defibrillator. I held the hands of your men and I was reminded of one thing. You can teach someone CPR, 12-lead placement, and IO access. You can prepare them for the signs of a stroke, management of a STEMI, and the warning signs of peri-arrest. You can never prepare a first responder to work on their own. Welcome back to Medicated and Motivated. My name is Ashlyn. I am a full-time paramedic, and this is my podcast where I talk about the real and the raw lifestyle of what it is like being an EMS provider. If you don't know me, if you don't know my face, if you don't recognize my voice, don't worry. I completely understand. If this is your first time listening to an episode, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. You may recognize me from TikTok. I have a very large platform over there that most people have probably heard of. I also have an Instagram page. And then this podcast was actually created back in like September of 2024, but it's been on hiatus since about November. I kind of just threw my hands up and decided that podcasting really wasn't for me. I hated recording, I hated editing, I hated posting. It became a chore for me. And if there's one thing about content creation, I want to enjoy it. I create content that I am proud of. I create content to inspire others, but honestly, to inspire me as well, to become a better person and a provider. And when recording episodes felt like a chore, that's when I realized I didn't want to do it anymore. I had no intentions of bringing this podcast back. I was very content making visual content over on TikTok and Instagram. Audio content, not my niche. There are so many other amazing EMS podcasts out there that are killing it. However, last week I went to Lexington, Kentucky, and I had the absolute pleasure of being a guest at Fast 25, hosted by Flightbridge Education. I won't go into too many details about the conference. I'm going to do a whole conference recap in a different episode. But while I was there, I had the pleasure of meeting so many wonderful EMS providers and being around all of these people that share the same passion that I do for not only content creation, but just motivating and inspiring others, it really, really lit a fire under my butt and like rekindled the love that I truly have for this job and why I started my content in the first place. There were some people there that their words really stuck with me, saying that I had a gift. I had a gift of inspiring others, and that meant a lot because I was at a critical care conference, not a critical care provider. I have no intentions of being a critical care provider, and it was a lot of imposter syndrome being around these wonderful people and them like telling me how amazing my content is, and I'm like, you are 10 times smarter than me. This means a lot. But anyway, I met one specific person at this conference. This person walked up to me and started saying how he loved my content. He loved the messages I'm putting out there, and he condoned me for all of the work that I've put in. And he really, really wanted to collab and talk more about just the space that we're creating in first response. That person was James Boomhauer. If you don't know, James Boomhauer is the founder of Stay Fit for Duty. He is a critical care transport paramedic. He is the lead peer support group for Boston Medflight in Massachusetts. He is a licensed mental health counselor. He is all of the fancy letters behind your name. He's probably got it. His mission is to bring mental health awareness to the first response field, whether it's EMS, fire, police, or military, and really, really preaching that it is okay to not be okay and break that stigma that for some reason first response has like pounded into their heads of not talking about their trauma that they have gained over the years from being in this job. James, and just himself, he is a magnet person. When you walk up to him, he has this aura around him where you feel so comfortable. You feel at ease, peace. He has just this amazing aura around him to where when I walked up to him, we just got to talking. I felt like I could really confide in him about a lot of the crap that's been going on within my career. My original intent was I wanted to pull him aside and do a couple TikTok clips, just like a couple 2-minute videos here and there, just generalized advice. The more I got to thinking, I really wanted to ask him about a certain topic that I have been struggling with for the past 5 months. It's a topic that I have not talked about to anyone, especially on social media. I've talked to maybe a few coworkers and my fiance about it. That's about it. It's a topic that when you Google it, when you try to look into it, when we try to physically seek out advice, it's hard to because nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to imagine it. Nobody wants to physically think and build a plan to prepare for it. What happens when our patients are first responders? What happens when it's your coworker that is the patient? It's kind of one of those incidents where you think, oh, that's not going to happen. Oh, that would never happen to them. But in reality, we have like a 50-50 shot. You could roll up to an accident and it may take you a minute to recognize that person because they're not in uniform, but it's a fellow firefighter. It's a police officer. It's one of your partners that's on a different shift. It's a very realistic scenario that I have had the unlucky just chances of having over the past few months. I've been a part of a couple calls where the patients were a variety of first responders, and some were good outcomes, some were bad outcomes. The first time it happened, it rattled me just thinking about this person is so special to so many people. This person was getting up for their shift, and then this person never made it to another shift. That rattled me a lot. It was the first time I had ever seen another first responder laying on my cot. The second time it happened
was much more emotional. I do go into a little bit of detail with our interview, so I won't get too much into it, but that second time it really happened is when I started writing down my thoughts. I started really thinking there's got to be a way to prepare first responders for this incident. There's got to be a way, even if it's a not common thing. Obviously, it happens because I have already experienced it twice. And I posted that TikTok that started this episode. I read through comments upon comments upon comments of people that said, "You just brought back so many memories." It is happening, but no one wants to talk about it because no one wants to think about our brothers and sisters laying on our cots. Nobody wants to think about putting stickers on their chests, a mask on their face, an IV in their arm. It's a hard thought. It's a very difficult one. It's one that we will suppress until trauma will literally eat us alive. And I love what James has to say about that. This video, I want to put a disclaimer. It is a hard listen. We talk obviously about mental health, trauma, a lot of triggering things in this episode. I understand that this episode may not be for you. It may be triggering. It may be a really hard listen for you. And if that's the case, I completely understand. I highly encourage everyone to try. The amount of physical relief I felt talking about all of these details that I have had running through my head for the past 5 months, it was a weight off of my chest. Just talking, whether James is a therapist or not, he was someone that was there to listen. And I felt lighter walking away from this conversation. This episode healed parts of me that I didn't realize were so broken over the past few months, that were so rattled. This episode is so near and dear to my heart that I do see this episode being the start of something much bigger in the future, because there has got to be a way for providers to prepare themselves for the inevitable. There's got to be resources out there to where we are taking care of each other after these incidences. So, I hope you enjoy this episode. I will also put a disclaimer. Yes, this video is in portrait mode. I did the #1 content creator fail, and I did not turn my phone. I am sorry. The audio is probably also a little choppy because we were in a very large hallway. Just ignore it and listen to the message. I really hope you enjoy, and thank you so much for all the support, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Have a good shift. I don't have a fancy pen like Jimmy does. Okay. All right. I'm sitting here with James Boomhauer. We're both at the Fast 25 conference. This is someone that follows me and that I am new to. So I would like you to give just a small introduction of yourself and kind of what your company is and what your morale and just what you stand for, what you're trying to make aware in the EMS community.
Totally. My name is James Boomhauer. Thank you. I run Stay Fit for Duty. I'm a critical care transport specialist and a master's prepared therapist. And I work to not only give first responders mental health insight that is valuable to them as a first responder, I also work within the mental health professional community to help give insight and guidance into how to best work with and collaborate with and build some competency alongside our first responders, military veterans, and healthcare providers.
And mental health is something that it's becoming more aware, and it's great, but it's also, I feel like it's my generation that is more aware of the mental health effects of EMS, not really the veterans of the career. They're more like, I've been in this career for a long time. I'm fine. I've survived. Whereas I'm 5 years in, and I think I've experienced burnout like every other week. Yeah. And it's exhausting. What I wanted to specifically talk to you about is something that I have not opened up on social media about. I have become a black cloud at my service for working on other first responders. I have now been a part of 3 calls where the first responders, my coworkers, like people we've responded with, have become my patients. And
nobody can prepare a first responder for when the patient becomes their coworker or becomes another firefighter, police officer, another paramedic even. And I will say one of the calls had a pretty bad effect on me mentally. And not only did I not have a lot of follow-up, like I think that's a big topic in EMS is services are not giving their providers follow-up. They're not checking in on them like they probably should be. But it was a lot of just mental battle of, oh my gosh, this person is in the same field as me. Did I run this call adequately? Like, could I have changed something? Because now they are either severely injured or they've even passed. Could I have done something differently to affect them? What is advice or what do you have mindset-wise of what happens when the patients become our coworkers?
Totally. First, I want to give you kudos for the courage to share
Yeah.
that on this platform and talk about something that we don't normally talk about. I want to be a bit academic for just a second and highlight what makes an event traumatic to help kind of tie this all together. We know like the big ones, right? Like bad, gory calls and kid
Right.
calls and things like that. But like the American Psychological Association actually has a list
Oh.
of what makes events traumatic.
Okay.
And 3 out of that list are hopeless, helpless, and something that changes our worldview. And I think when we interact with members of our own community, be it through traumatic events, be it through injuries, be it through self-harm, things like that, I really think you're hitting all 3.
Okay.
Right? You're feeling helpless in the moment, especially if the outcome isn't what you want, right?
Right.
You feel that your colleagues deserve your A game as they do,
Right.
right? And sometimes even when we cerebrally know that we're doing our best, when we're
Right.
not seeing the outcome we want, we feel some type of way.
Right.
Additionally, I think that also leads us to like this hopelessness of like this person isn't going to survive and the
Yeah.
trauma that can bring towards us.
Yeah. Well, and when the first call that we had, the catastrophic was cardiac arrest. We actually received follow-up just 2 weeks ago. And when we read the cath lab report, and it's like, okay, this person had 4 to 5, almost 100% occlusions. Like, if this would have been a regular patient, mentally we would have known the outcome is slim. I mean, isn't it 8% of out-of-hospital cardiac arrest actually survive?
super
Something
low,
super
yeah.
small. So, like, yes, we know these statistics. But since it is now a known first responder, we know this person, we know the service they work for, it was almost like we were gaslighting ourselves of like, no, he's going to survive. Like, he's got to survive. And then when we read that cath lab report, it's like, oh no, this person was not surviving whatsoever.
Yeah, and you highlight this idea of like brotherhood and family. And
Yeah.
I think it's as important to think about this
Right.
like a family member, like a close friend, because they are.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel we often miss the mark in talking about our worldview change.
Yeah.
Right. And I work in HEMS and critical care. Every time there's a helicopter crash, I'm reminded that I work in a field where the
Yeah.
helicopter could crash.
It's crazy.
And that effect that it has, I think, is something that we can't ignore, right?
Yeah.
We say, yeah, I know. But like, do you really appreciate like the
Right.
pull and the pain that brings forward?
Oh, and it's terrible. There's a lot of things keeping me out of critical care, but I think that is the number one thing. Yes, ambulance crashes are not good. Any vehicle crash is not good, especially when you have a large vehicle that size. But a helicopter crash, they are almost 100% total fatality. Like, you have those anomalies here and there where you will have survivors, but just even in this year, I can think of 7 aircraft crashes already, and all of them have been total fatalities. That's scary. That is something that I was talking to an attendee here last night. She knew the last crash. That was her paramedic preceptor, and that broke my heart for her. Those types of thoughts that go through our heads of like, why are we doing this career? We're putting ourselves at risk. It's just like a police officer. My fiance is a police officer. Knowing he's going into the field every day with the danger of he could get hurt. He could be responding to a flat tire and this person's setting them up. Like, that mindset is scary to me. And we have the same mindset. We have someone's calling 911, they're saying they have chest pain. It could all be a setup. It could all be we're going there and they're actually going to have guns to our heads instead, or they're going to blow up their house and all of us are going to be trapped inside and we're not going to have any way to get help. That's a scary thought. And I think that is when I realized, like, I do actually have anxiety in this career. It was one of the first times where I thought about, like, I have a lot of fears associated with just my job alone, where I think about PD needs to respond with me to every call, or I want to be wearing a vest 24/7 in my 24-hour shifts. Should I be carrying on duty? It brings up a lot of these just thoughts in my head of like, how can I protect myself just so I can get to my patient and actually render them care? Because that's what we're supposed to be doing. I mean, I don't like bringing up the KCFD firefighter, but that's all he was doing. He was doing his job. And it's so hard to think like this man died doing his job, not even the dangerous one. He's a firefighter. He didn't die in a structure fire. He died rendering care to a patient. But that's a real fear. And I think that in those stories like his are bringing up a lot of, oh, this career actually is really dangerous. People are very, in the not disrespectful way possible, but they're heartless. They are calling us to help them. They are the ones hurting us. They are the ones putting us in danger. That mental health aspect is really, really hard on us, and nobody seems to be really addressing it. Or when the headlines and the news articles are addressing it, they're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And we're all kind of like, yeah, we've been telling you this.
We're trying to let you know that this is a thing. Yeah.
You haven't been listening to us. So what are some, I guess, like mental de-escalation ways that we can kind of calm ourselves down or bring us back to reality instead of like drowning down this hole of anxiety every time we respond to a call?
Totally. That's awesome. And give me a second to make my standard disclaimer of I am a therapist, but I'm not your therapist, right? And this is not a substitute for mental health care.
He's not being paid to sit here.
Exactly right. I think a really big important thing to remember is something Dr. Levitan talked about at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Is there's what we can control and there's what we can't control.
Yeah.
And if I can take, to steal a term from my acceptance commitment folks, and say, what is in my sphere of control?
Yeah.
What do I have control over and what don't I have control over? And I think some of the problem within our profession is we are so good at so many things, but we don't always realize all the other factors that had to work. I mean, Dr. Hauser just talked about the pharmacokinetics of one antiarrhythmic versus another, right?
Yeah.
And like how one channel optic sodium channel was
Yeah.
the difference between alive or dead. That has nothing to do with whether or not I give 250 a saline.
Right.
And recognizing that my goals are to be safe for my team and myself, and then for the patient.
Yeah.
And if I can make all three of those things happen, and I do my job well within the protocols and the capabilities and what I have in the ambulance or the helicopter, the rest of it isn't up to me.
Right.
And if I can kind of go through that mental checklist and say, did I keep myself safe? Did I keep my team safe? Did I keep my patient safe? The rest of it's out of my hands.
Right.
And I think that for most of us, that takes time and experience and some struggle.
Yeah.
I really want to validate, the anxiety that you're hearing. I think that it is an important part of maturing in this profession and an important part of doing this job.
Right.
If you just come in and you're like, no, people die, I'd be like, I mean, that's
Yeah,
really profound,
but that's a lot of the perspectives that first responders have. Like, I used to be very, very close with one of my coworkers, and he's also a firefighter. And he would always tell me, he's like, if I died doing my job, I would die happy. And I was like, okay, but I don't want to be the one responding to you. Like, that would be catastrophic for me and the entire service, knowing that we're the ones working on you. Or some of them are also part of the SWAT team at my service, and they're all like, well, if we run into a house or into a school with active shooter and we're trying to save all these kids, we're dying happy. And I'm like, but I don't want you to die. Like, selfishly, I don't want you to die, even though I know these children are dying. Like, I understand we get into this job to help people, and we understand like this all comes with a risk. But that mindset of like, hey, I could die when I go to work, that's a scary mindset. Yeah. That's an insanely scary mindset. No matter how much bulletproof vests, protection, helmets, body cams, self-carry, like no matter how much we try to protect ourselves, people are out there, and some of them do have just the want to harm, and it's scary. It's awful.
I'm going to steal a line from Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
So bear with me for a second, right? PBS is in crisis right now, but like that is the quintessential look for the helpers.
Yeah.
There are always more good people than bad people.
Yeah.
And the bad people get more press than they deserve.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying there aren't bad people, right?
No.
Don't mishear
Right.
that, but there are always more good people than bad people. And
Right.
can I stay on the side of the good people and defend from those bad people?
Right. Kind of looping it back to our patients are now our coworkers.
Yeah.
What would you, like, what have you had experience with this topic? Like, where have you looked into this, spoke to other people? What have you learned about this topic? Because I truly feel like if there is a topic we cannot and do not teach students, it is this topic. You talk about all the time how to run a cardiac arrest, how to run a car wreck, how to treat traumas. But what we don't prepare them for is when that patient becomes your coworker, and now you have to deal with that fight or flight of it's like they talk about yesterday, your fine motor skills, gone. Your cognitive thinking, out the window. Like you hear the ringing in your ear, your eyes are dilated, like everything is a blur. No one prepares us for that. And I know I was never prepared for it. And the fact that I've now dealt with it 3 times, and I've talked to my coworkers, like the partners I've had, I've talked to them, but even they're like, I don't know, I wasn't expecting this, and it sucks. It really does. And I don't think the services really know how to respond either. Instead of pulling us aside, just be like, you good? Like it's the traditional, like just the head nod of, you good? I'm like,
Yep.
I'm fine.
Which
It's
is better
good.
than nothing.
No,
right?
yeah,
But, like,
it is.
Not what we need. A whole bunch of parts to that question. I want to try
Yeah.
to hit all of them. On the operational side of the coin, what do I do when, like, so my thing in the helicopter, right? Doing a scene call, I'm really busy, everybody's all amped up. When I can't connect my needleless adapter,
Yeah.
I start to box breathe.
Yeah.
Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. And then I make a joke about not having enough coffee. I'm like, oh, it's early, right?
On one of our calls, my captain, we were putting the Forley on the patient, and I just noticed, I was like, that's not smoke over fire, that's not cloud over grass. He had flipped them, and I look at him, I like make eye contact with him, I'm like, hey, you good? And he's just like, I could hear him cuss under his breath, like, oh, okay. You could tell he was flustered, and then after the call, he's like, yeah, when I put on that Forley wrong, that's when I realized I had to like take a step back and stuff. And it was actually a really like kind of eye-opening moment of like, this is my captain. Like I look up to him. Everything I see is like, he does great. So seeing that he was flustered in that moment, seeing our fellow first responder on our cot was really eye-opening to me. And I was like, oh shoot, like this is affecting all of us in the moment.
Yeah, and that normalization of it, right, can be really helpful. Of like, here's a 20-year veteran badass, right, and here's the brand new EMT, and then an experienced medic, and like everything in between, right, and how everyone's affected by it. So the compartmentalization in the moment is important, right? I recognize I'm affected by this. I have to put this over here just for now, right? Do the job, do the work. But then when that is done, can we give ourselves the grace to say, that wasn't some 90-year-old nobody. Not that they don't deserve our love and respect, and not that they can't pull at our heartstrings too, but like, this wasn't some kid with a broken leg.
Yeah.
This was a profoundly traumatic event.
Yeah.
And even starting there and recognizing the weight of that, giving yourself the allowance to say, I'm having really normal reactions to a really abnormal event.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, oh my God, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, in the first couple days, as long as you don't want to hurt yourself or someone else, right? Nearly everything outside of binge drinking is a understandable and normal response to a traumatic event.
And
So start with that.
Oh, and I think that's, it's kind of like, I hate talking about school shootings or even structure fires, tornadoes. They're like, it's the mindset of, oh, it's not going to happen to us. It's not going to happen in our area. It's not going to happen here. But you hear every single person say that. You hear Sandy Hook and Uvalde, they all say like, oh, we would have never thought it happened to us. Well, we would have never thought our coworker was going to collapse in front of us in cardiac arrest. I'm sure the entire crew that watched him collapse thought that as well. Like the first thing I heard when we got to the hospital with that patient was, it should not have been him. And it's sad and it's scary, but unfortunately it was him. And how are we going to wrap our heads around that now? Because the hardest thing for me, specifically on that call, was not only did I know every single person in my truck, I knew the person on the cot. It was these are big, burly firefighters. They are the people that lift the 400-pounders with me. They're the people that are goofy and they cook with us and they're fighting all these structure fires. Like, you see these like macho men. And when I looked at them and I saw their faces looked like they had just got out of a shower because they were crying so much, after the call, one of them walked up to me and I could physically see, it looked like his hands were seizing. He was shaking so much, his voice was trembling. That's when I broke down because I was like, it's so hard and I can't imagine how these men are reacting to their own hurt. and it's scary. This man has trained them and raised them from the ground up as firefighters, and now he is hurt. So when I saw them react that way, I still can't help but wonder, like, are they okay? Because I know I wasn't okay, and I'm not even like personal with this guy. I've just ran some calls with him. So that's where I kind of like sit here, and that's now like one of my soapboxes is, why are we not preparing more people to work on their coworkers? Because like you said, it's an abnormal event. I think that's why it's not talked about more often, is because like, oh, well, it's something we don't think about. Like, we're telling you how to treat a cardiac arrest. That should be enough. I'm like, well, yeah, but we're also humans. Like, we're not robots running cardiac arrests. We're humans that are going to recognize these people and think like our judgment's going to get impaired and our emotions are going to come out to play. We're not preparing our students or anyone out in the field adequately at all. Even the big, macho, burly firefighters were not prepared to see a seemingly amazing, healthy guy fall and collapse in cardiac arrest. We're not preparing them, and it's affecting us mentally. Of now, every time they go on calls or every time they go out to train or to PR events, they're all like hyper aware of each other. They're like, nobody's going to collapse today, right? Like, they're all so hyper aware of, are we all okay?
Yeah. And you highlight something. I'm a men's therapist primarily, right? so bear with the kick here. You said these big burly men having such normal responses to losing a friend, a brother, a coworker, right? Like that is. I don't care what their bench press is, right? And I understand you were just saying it, like, for example, right? But like, we do that, right? Like, Ashley's allowed to cry, but James isn't, right?
Right.
And how fucking awful that is for those
Oh,
individuals.
it was terrible. That was the first time where I stood back and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna break down, because it's these men. Like, one of them specifically, he is the goofball on scene. There is not a moment where he's not joking around. So seeing him shattered was, it was terrible. It was awful seeing that, because it's not something you see.
Right.
But it's also something that we were not prepared for this. Right. They acted appropriately. They did everything that they were supposed to. It's not the physical stuff, it's the mental stuff afterwards. Like, I texted all of the engine crews afterwards and I was like, can y'all check on him? Is he okay? Like, how is he doing? Because there was a great outcome out of this call, the best outcome we could have possibly had. But it will never, ever erase the memory of seeing your coworker lying on the ground and doing CPR on them. That's not a thought that you can just erase from your head,
Yeah. I think, when you talk about what you can do, the biggest antidote to that chaos is preparation.
Yeah.
And it is safety week, as you and I record this, and EMS week. So
it's EMS week. Yeah.
I'll give a nod to our safety guys. Does your team have a line of duty death protocol? Does your team have a agency response protocol?
I don't think I've ever heard of a line of duty death protocol, to be honest with you.
So that could be the answer, right? and it might be there, right? It might be in a dress drawer somewhere that answers all your questions, but nobody talks about. So can you have these dialogues? Can you pull this out of the shadows and say, what are we going to do if paramedic XYZ dies on a call? We all know the medicine. Nobody's going to flub up the medicine, right? You're going to be hyperactivated, but you're going to do the medicine. The mental health relief that you all deserve comes from the cognitive offloading of, it's awful, it sucks, it's terrible, but we have a plan.
Right.
And can we institute that plan and put in forms of critical incident stress and put together, psychologic first aid and other pieces that are really imperative to that. But if you don't have that plan, you're building all at once, and you're just continually stressing yourself out.
Well, and the biggest thing that drives me insane is, this was the first call of the day for me, and we had to go back to work.
Yeah.
Now, they sent the firefighters home, obviously, because that's their coworker, but me and my captain were just expected to return.
Yeah.
And another call that I had where it was catastrophic, all of us were coming off duty, thank God, but no one else checked on us. Like, we were still expected to return the next day and come to shift, act as everything is normal. And I think sometimes services do it well. They're like, actually, you guys need to go home. That was not very good. But a lot of times it takes us advocating for ourselves, like, hey, I don't feel well after this call. I'm going to go home. Yeah. And I think there's not backlash, but there's judgment. There's like they literally call them like pussies. They're wussies, like, oh, you're not tough enough for this crap. And I think a lot of that comes from the generational thing of EMS and first response of, well, this is taboo. I've dealt with this for years upon years. I've seen kids die. I've seen our men shot. Like, I was fine. It's like, hey, just because you're fine doesn't mean everyone else is fine. And actually, you may not realize you weren't fine in the moment.
Yeah, I took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah. It's the like, were you fine? Jimmy and I
Yeah.
talked about this earlier. Like, are you at peak
Yeah.
performance, right? And recognizing that some people can. I don't ever want to take someone's resilience away from them.
Right.
It's okay to be okay.
Yeah.
It's also okay to not be okay.
Right.
And one of the things I'm hearing you highlight is the almost administrative betrayal of like,
Yeah.
why did I still have to work? Why couldn't I have felt safe enough to say, I'm really shook. I know he wasn't my captain. I know this wasn't my event, right? But like, I knew that person. I was really, really shook by this.
Yeah.
And can you create the administrative components or even the senior level leadership to say, we don't have a protocol, we don't have a team, we don't have this, but like, I'm an adult and I'm a human, and I know when someone needs support and rest.
Yeah.
So I encourage them to take that support and rest.
Yeah. Kind of wrapping it all up, what is the closing advice that you would have for first responders for this whole topic of like, you are going to respond to your coworkers. It's almost inevitable. You're going to respond to their family. You're going to respond to their friends, whether it's an off-duty incident or an on-duty incident. What would you say to have them take away from this?
Totally. So in the moment, it's okay to compartmentalize.
Yeah.
Like, you got to lock it up, you got to do your job, that's okay, right? And that's coming from a mental health professional. In every moment after the call, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to need support. It's okay to need rest.
Yeah.
It's okay to ask for that help. And at that moment, what I ask the teams that I work with to do, what I ask my colleagues and myself to do is not only our own self-check, but can we look out for one another?
Yeah.
Right? And maybe I'm so deep in the suck, which I'll talk about here in a couple hours, right? Maybe I'm so deep in the suck that I think I'm fine.
Yeah.
And Ashley's like, bro,
No,
you are
you're
not
I
fine.
did that the other week. I had a partner. She was having a family emergency. And I love this partner. I know her very, very well. I could just tell she was not there. It's the fine motor skills that go away when your mind is just not into the call. And I was like, girl, go home. And I felt bad because I went to our supervisor and I was like, hey, she's not okay, but she will not put herself out of service. And that's the thing we need to do is people need to put themselves out of service. Your truck's fine, your truck is clean, it's stocked. You're not okay though. And you are a part of this truck. You need to put yourself out of service. And she did. I ended up getting her to go home and she was like, you know what, thank you. I needed that. That is something that I think we need to keep pushing on each other is like, hey, yes, you're here, you're not here. It's just like when you're sick.
Yeah.
You don't want to be at work when you're sick. I think a lot of people don't think about when I'm not mentally well, like when I'm going through the suck in my head, that's also being sick.
Yeah.
You're not okay. You're not all there. You're not able to perform adequately, but people physically won't put themselves out of service. They just keep pushing through to distract themselves.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, right? And for the administrators like watching this or listening to this, out of service doesn't mean for 24 hours.
Yeah.
You need to pull yourself out of system one, right? Like
Yeah.
disengage your sympathetic, engage your parasympathetic, get a little bit of rest, have some water, eat some food, and then actually reassess.
Yeah.
And say, hey, I actually think I'm okay. Okay, cool. I'm going to check in 6 more hours, right?
Yeah.
Like, know that today's a rolling day. You tell
Right.
me how well you can work. So I always feel like administrators are like, I don't have the puzzle pieces
Yeah.
to let everyone leave for 24 hours.
Yeah.
And I like to remind people that, like, but you do have the puzzle pieces for them to sit for an hour.
Right.
And maybe Ashley only needs that hour. Maybe
Yeah.
James only needs that hour. And I'm like, I know me. I'm a delayed processor, right?
Yeah.
So an hour I'll be good, and then 3 days later, right, I'll need some support. But give your crews that flexibility and that opportunity.
Yeah. All right. Where can we find you?
My primary social media is Instagram.
Okay.
I am stay_fit4duty. I think Ashley's going to tag that.
Yeah,
so you
I
don't
will,
have to remember
100%.
that. You can also find me at stayfitforduty.org.
Or you can just come to EMS conferences because that's how I've met him.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate
I appreciate
it.
your time.
Thanks.